Microsoft dropped earnings, and it's good news for Xbox. That's right, friends. It is that time of the quarter where all the big companies are sharing their earnings reports, and Xbox, which is a part of Microsoft, has dropped some new numbers, and things look relatively, and I say that, with a little asterisk, which we'll talk about here in a second, relatively good, right? The things that Microsoft want to go up went up. Things that we expected to go down went down. So why don't we just dive into the numbers here? There's no BSing around here trying to drag this out. Let's go for the numbers. So at a high level, Microsoft's going to be okay, right? They had revenue of $70 billion, dues up 13%, and they had net income, which is the dollar dues that you put into the bank account after you paid all your bills, of $25.8 billion. Just astronomical numbers that are even hard to just realistically understand to us mere mortals. Now, it wasn't all driven by Xbox. This was all driven by massive growth in the cloud and demand and compute. But here we are to talk about Xbox, and so let's jump into that. So the specific Xbox numbers. So gaming revenue was up 5%, which is the overall revenue bucket. Now, Xbox content and services grew at 8%, which is realistically what Microsoft says. Hey, please judge us by that number. That's what they say. And they say it was driven by growth in Xbox Game Pass, Call of Duty, and Minecraft. Remember, Call of Duty was the big risk that they put in there at the end of last year. And so, oh yes, it's also important to point out, this is for Q1 as we think of it on a calendar year, but it's Q3 for Team Xbox or Team Microsoft. So they said Game Pass, Call of Duty, and Minecraft, which is something we haven't always seen show up here is explicitly in the earnings. However, it is not all perfectly peachy news. As we expected, hardware revenue declined 6%. Because let's be realistic here, Microsoft isn't running aggressive promotions on the hardware side saying come please buy our latest wares, because realistically they're sticking to their price point. And actually we've even seen on the PlayStation side some price increases outside of the United States. Now, diving more into the details here, and I apologize, I just screenshotted my own tweets and yeets and skates or whatever they're called on all the different platforms because I was listening to the earnings call and just writing things up as things went through. So Satya Nadella, the CEO, obviously, he said, we ended the quarter as a top publisher on both Xbox and PlayStation Store for pre-orders and pre-installs. That's a pretty big humble brag. Now, obviously, Xbox is launching more things on PlayStation. Forza just went out, right? We've seen Sea of Thieves. We know Indiana Jones. We've seen a lot of titles landing on PlayStation. So that's not all that surprising, but it's a pretty big deal when the CEO comes out and says, hey, look, we're the top publisher on both console platforms. That is a big deal. Now, PC Game Pass did increase 45% year over year. However, as Microsoft has done time and time again, we got no Game Pass numbers. We've got these vague things that kind of talk about things are improving, such as cloud gaming set a new record of 150 million hours played in the quarter. Now, we don't know how many users that is because Microsoft, again, isn't trying to share realistically what the overall number is. And so I believe it's been over a year. Yeah, it has been over a year since we've gotten any real concrete Game Pass number. And it's going to go on for, until Microsoft decides and changes its mind. And so that is at least indicators that things are going in the right direction, which is, good news for Microsoft and Xbox, but it's not the numbers that we've all been waiting for. But 150 million hours played in the quarter seems like a lot, at least it does to me. I don't personally use this service. I mean, I pay for it, but I don't personally cloud game realistically other than testing anything out. But clearly, people are picking it up. Now, LG just announced that new deal, in a quote deal, or a new offering that you can play Xbox Cloud Gaming on their later gen TVs. And so that's clearly going to at least help connect more people to the service. And yeah, that's obviously going to help that number increase. So moving on here, following the release of the Minecraft movie, which was a very big deal, and Microsoft is doing very well because of this, they saw a 75% increase in weekly active users of Minecraft year over year. That's rather significant. So the movie came out, did serious numbers, right? We've all seen the memes and everything, the chicken jockeys and everything else going on. And so that very tangibly led to growth in the game, or I should say returning users to the game to at least play it again. And obviously that's going to help Microsoft out in the long run. Now, the future outlook. Amy Hood did not give any real detailed or concrete information related to the pricing and the earnings and everything else. So the future outlook. So they said gaming revenue growth will be in the mid single digits and the content and services will be in the high single digits, driven by first party content. I'm guessing Doom. I'm just going to say it's going to be Doom from here on out is going to be the thing that is driving revenue for the next quarter. But overall, it was a genuinely pretty good quarter for Xbox. However, the one downside, and this is what people grapple onto when it comes to Xbox, is like, hey, but hardware revenue was down and it means Xbox is doomed. Not doomed the game that's going to be the driver of growth for the next quarter, but doomed, right? The reality here is that Microsoft knows that they can only sell one Xbox 2 per user. Now, I'm an oddball and I've bought 3 of them, so I am an anomaly when it comes to this sort of calculations. But if you look at the Xbox website, it's kind of even hard to buy an Xbox even if you want one. I mean, look at their top SKUs, right? The things that would drive that revenue number, that decline of 6% that would really drive that. So their top 2 SKUs at $600 and $500 or so, give or take. They're sold out. Like, you can't now, you might be able to find them at Best Buy and other places. I'm not saying you can't, but this is Microsoft's own store and Microsoft doesn't even have them in stock. And there's various SKUs that are out of stock. So like, it's not a surprise that Xbox revenue is down. Microsoft says, look, we are not a Xbox hardware company. We're still making the console, but we're going to make the console, we're going to stick to a price point, and we're going to innovate and expand our content and services revenue, and that is the future of Xbox. And so, yes, revenue from hardware is declining because it should. People buy, unless you're me, one Xbox. It's even hard to buy an Xbox, and that's just the way that it's going to be, and that's the rest of this generation until we get new hardware. And then you're going to have headlines like, look, hardware revenue up 300% year over year. Like that's just the nature of what's going to be. And Microsoft will know exactly how many consoles they can roughly sell. Somewhere we believe like between 30 and 50 million units seems to be like the whole life cycle of an Xbox console these days. And that's just what it is. So yes, you can get hung up in some of these numbers that are only single digit gross or whatever, and that the hardware is declining. But the real gut feeling is that Xbox actually is feeling pretty healthy right now as a business. Yes, they're far from being exclusive games every single platform every single day. However, if you are paying for Game Pass like I am right now, it is a wonderful and tremendous value that I'm going to get to play Doom when it comes out, and Avowed, and Indiana Jones, and Call of Duty Black Ops, and I'm missing a whole bunch in there. Oh gosh, South of Midnight, all for the same fee. So now, it wouldn't surprise me here if the fees get raised up. Hopefully Satya and Amy are not listening, but that is the reality of Xbox. And so Xbox is healthy. Xbox seems to be in a good position with revenue growing in the right places for the right reasons, and top line and bottom line revenue appear to be growing, margin included. So I look at this quarter as a very good quarter for Xbox. Nothing is ever perfect. You can grapple on to the consoles aren't selling at some tremendous volume, but at the end of the day, they are the top selling and top publisher on both platforms. And for Xbox to continue long into the future, long after the sun blows up and I'm dead, that is what the company needs it to be. And so that, my friends, is good news for Xbox. And as always, if you want to stay latest, if you want to get the worst outro ever, if you want to stay updated on the latest information happening with Xbox, make sure to keep it subscribed here, because the BS on this channel is me.